application process, and we're off to a good start. The last 2 hours of the meeting were devoted to an in-depth discussion of the model preservation local law discussed at the public hearing on December 17th. As you remember, this public hearing was adjourned until February 4th. During the December 17th public hearing, several issues of concern surfaced which prevented the trustees from voting to adopt this law. The OHPAC studied these concerns and discussed remedies with Village Attorney Van Wy and Trustee Fuller. Tonight, Attorney Van Wy will present to the board the latest version of the law, which addresses the concerns that were expressed by the public, the mayor, and some trustees. It is the hope of the OHPAC that the board will accept this version of the presented law and attend a separate work session so that all can be properly informed before the vote. We recommend that you vote to adopt the law as soon as possible. The Weitzman building is only the beginning of building and renovation wave that the village has not seen since the Great Fire of 1849. The village needs to properly plan for the exercising of the complicated and detailed administrative responsibilities arising from the DRI projects in the historic district. Figure out a way to employ a very competent CEO as full-time. Vote to adopt the new preservation law. These two elements will ensure success at the administrative level, which will allow and support approved projects to complete their goals in a safe and appropriate manner.
Thank you.
Trustee,
So we do have,
can you pass that? Yes. Thank you.
jumping around a little bit, but we do have the new local law, new
Updates to it.
version of the local law.
So, one of those things that that I mentioned in my email to you folks was, I didn't want necessarily this draft to, it shouldn't be presented to the broader public yet until you guys say, okay, yeah, this is the draft that you'd like,
Right.
presented. So, I mean, if you guys have a chance to look at it, I know Rusty, you want, and I think this is a good idea, to have a work session for the board to, sit down and really have an in-depth, talk about what these provisions are, what the most recent changes that were discussed are. Do you want to go this way? Are there further tweaks that should be done? In order to make the February 4th hearing deadline, I think we should probably have that work session within the next week, just so we can make sure if we need to get it off to the county, that we've got time and we can make those changes. Broadly speaking, I think one of the big discussions that we had was changing the designation process for the historic boundaries of the district and specific landmarks. The initial draft that Ed, Nadine, and I had worked on had the commission making those final decisions after a pretty thorough process. One of the comments I think from the meeting last time was that should be the village board doing that. And so we had a good discussion about that. The process is basically staying the same. It's just that the village board will now be the entity doing that. To give you guys an update just on the historic district's boundaries, I had, and the question of where are they? So we had an interesting discussion at the meeting of the OHPAC, and apparently the boundaries as shown on that, for example, zoning map behind you, are the national historic district boundaries. There are actually a couple districts. There's a local district and then the state and the federal district. That's the state and the federal district. That does not correlate to the local district boundaries, which is an issue because I think when we tell people what they're subject to, they should be shown the local district, not the national and the state district. So I talked with Cindy at the village clerk's office. She was able to provide me with minutes from the 1986 meeting at which the local district was helpfully outlined in a newspaper article that was then incorporated directly into the minutes somehow. But that's what was done in 1986. In that, I can tell you, description of the boundaries matches the same description that I've currently put into that. It's the same description that we used last year. It's the same description that was done in 1998 when the whole village code book was recodified. So actually, it looks like the local district boundaries have not changed since 1986. I know there was discussion about possible changes to the boundaries in 1998. That was actually to the national, to the state district boundaries, not to the local district. So, there's, I think, maybe some confusion as to where the local district is, and hopefully after going through all of this, we'll all be on the same page and can communicate that to the public.
Maybe you can make a map of it or something.
Then one of the other changes that was discussed was, and it was brought up at the meeting last time, was color. And I think the idea is that the OHPC would not be saying to folks, color, here's what the colors have to be. So I've gone through and removed basically the references to that color. There's also a pretty good discussion about non-permanent structures, such as the examples in the law were planters, swing sets, and then, just kind of broadly speaking, other non-permanent things. So, my thing that jumps to my mind is like an Amish shed or something like that. There was discussion that OHPC would not be reviewing those either. That, if they're non-permanent, then it should be allowed. So I've removed that section as well. I've cleaned up some other things. Just whenever you go through a 30-page law, you're going to see some things that you might want to tweak a little differently, or just to make it a little clearer. So you'll see in a red line version that I also sent, and we can resend that. You'll see the changes spelled out much more clearly in that way, but I believe what you have tonight is the clean version of it that shows everything incorporated. There's a few other things, again, if we have a work session, we can really get into it, but I just wanted to highlight those items to you guys right now.
So do you guys want to set a work session
Next week?
tonight?
This week, this
Well, next week would be nice. Rusty?
Have to be.
This week, tomorrow night, we have a meeting
Yeah,
with
this week's
the
crazy.
consulting firm. Wednesday's a meeting of the DRI. I think next week would be better.
Look at that calendar over there, thinking maybe next Tuesday, or you got anything going on, Nate?
I can meet Tuesday, I can meet Monday.
Just there's stuff,
It
looks
looks
like
like
there's
next
stuff here Monday and Wednesday, so,
Next week
And Monday
we're
is
pretty open.
6 is the cemetery committee.
right, so. I mean,
So
Tuesday would be
Tuesday
okay
days.
for me, I don't know, what about you
Usually
guys?
what time?
7?
Yeah, I mean, whenever you guys want to.
Okay.
Set out a reminder, I'll be available.
You could meet after cemetery committee,
Yeah,
that's from
they meet at
7.
6.
What are you talking
They're
about?
6 to 7.
Next Monday?
Next Monday,
Okay, for me.
that Monday, maybe.
I will say,
Okay.
if the experience from the OHPAC meeting where we kind of had a work session on this is any indication, you can probably block out a couple hours at least for this, because, there are some really
You're all
interesting
night.
discussions, yeah.
So
Pick a day.
Tuesday is better than Monday, or,
Tuesday. Monday is in-
right, Rusty?
Absolutely for me.
I think you should definitely. We get as many people there as we can. As far as from the board, is that good for you, Ron?
Actually, I got a Bible study Tuesday that I run.
Okay.
Bring them all.
On Monday the 7th?
Rusty's got a conflict on Monday.
Fire police thing.
Oh, what about
and I
Wednesday?
absolutely, I want everybody there, but I absolutely want Ron there. We've been
Yeah,
going through this together quite a bit, so.
yeah.
Next 2 weeks ago, I spend 6 hours on a Saturday going through these. Now with all the changes, it's gonna be another 6 hours going through the new.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
But, well, that's where I would say,
We can
look at
send
the
you
red
the
line
change
change.
version.
Right.
Yeah.
I have all these highlighted things that I have to compare it to the new.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I know we're working days. What's Thursday? Next Thursday.
What's the date?
Nothing on the board.
17th. I bowled with this
It's your
number.
birthday?
No, just,
You're asking who's available on that?
yeah, just, we're trying to get, we're getting Monday, we're getting Tuesday and Wednesday, we're just trying to pick a day.
Thursday would work for me.
So at
Whatever works for
a
you guys.
certain point, I don't recall when the county planning board meets
That's
in
it.
January, but if we want to try and submit the revised law to them for their January meeting, usually they would like it, a week or so plus in advance. I'm sure I can figure this out, but.
This doesn't happen to be up there.
No.
Yes, there's a public DRI meeting on Tuesday next week, right? Is it not
Wednesday.
15?
It's Wednesday.
On Wednesday?
15. Yeah, I guess I should. Yeah, so next Wednesday night won't work.
Thursday, 17th?
Will the 17th work?
Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday?
Yeah, I can make any of those dates work next week.
Okay,
Okay.
Thursday.
Thursday works?
7?
17th.
Okay.
Will that be here?
So it looks like the county's meeting is on the 16th. next week. So we can, and this is what I mentioned, if, I thought their meeting might be on a Wednesday. So this is like the earliest meeting that they're gonna have in any given month, because it's gonna be the third Wednesday. So if we can get our comments to them, I can, if the current draft that I've sent to you guys is generally acceptable, you know, I can send that on to them, and if we don't have very many changes beyond what we've already talked about, then we'll be good from that perspective. If we end up with really substantive changes to this thing, then we might have to hold off on the February 4th public hearing. But then this is what I said at the meeting last Thursday. If there are significant changes, I mean, then of course we should take the time to really think about them and give the county an opportunity to weigh in. So, did we say next Thursday?
Next Thursday, it's
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, so you have to put that in the paper too.
Work, till we go to workshop?
Workshop, yes.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one comment about what Nate's been talking about? Because people are worried about the color issue back and forth, and we did come to a thought on color issue. We don't have to have it be color. We have a place in here where it says that there is province over visual discord. So people were worried somebody could paint it bright polka dots and this and that. The visual discord will probably take care of any major color
Crazy
problem.
colors type, so.
And that's a good comment, and that's the type of thing that we'll have an opportunity to do at the work session, to really explore these items.
Sounds like a plan. All right, next item, are we good on that? Next Thursday, 7 o'clock right here.
Be here or somewhere else?
Right here, right? Yeah, easiest place. Next item is budget transfers. We passed out a sheet on that.
This is a list of all the department heads, well, where they were at, if there were any line item, they balanced it out by taking them together.
So this is something that's typically has been done at the end of the year. We're trying to do it as we go along to keep it,
Yeah.
keep in better graces with the comptroller and the audits that we all don't like to see.
So, I had a couple, Jeff, Danny, so this will bring all their stuff back there, pretty much even.
So is this since the last meeting? Is that
Yep.
okay?
As of today.
2 weeks, from 2 weeks.
I mean, it changes all the time, but this will get us right today.
Right.
Is action needed?
Yeah,
We need a
yeah,
motion.
we need a motion to accept all these.
Move to approve these budget transfers.
Yes, I-
You said-
Yes.
Oh, did Rusty make a motion? I wasn't even.
Rusty made the motion,
And
Charles
Charles
seconded.
said, okay.
So vote, Fran,
Yes.
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 and yes. Clean on that. All right, next item is PD cleaning person.
You guys should have a little simple paper, cleaning situation you have.
Yep.
Nate, you got one?
Yep.
Okay. And
So I actually called, so I saw this email
you got
from
one.
the police chief
Send it down.
about this idea, and I called Lynn Bruce today and had a conversation with her about it. And so the concept is, if we add a stipend to her job to pay her for work in addition to her normal duties, it still should be relating to her job duties. Her job duties currently don't include cleaning of any sort, and so if we assign these extra out-of-title duties to her, then the village potentially is opening itself to some claim that by her, that she's not doing, we're requiring her to work outside of her regular duties. Now, if we want to add this as a stipend to her, we can ask civil service to amend her job duties and then pay her through a stipend instead of adjusting her hourly rate in some fashion. That's something that we could do, I believe. it's just a question of how you guys want to approach this, but I think the concept of a stipend, we can possibly make this work. It's just, I think, again, making her job duties description reflect the fact that we would be asking her to do cleaning in addition to records duties. Now, that of course means too that she would be doing this within her 40-hour work week. You know, if we want her to work the regular 40 hours and then work additional hours beyond that, then I would recommend not doing it as a stipend and just paying her overtime for that work. But again, it always just comes back down to how do you guys want to do this, and is this the way to approach it or not?
Would that be equivalent to, like, I teach? If I take on a coaching position, I get a stipend for coaching. Is that essentially the same idea?
Kind of, but the difference between teaching and coaching, you know, coaching is a very clear add-on that you can't do coaching
I can't do
during
it
your
during my
normal work
regular
day.
day.
And stipend in this instance is more like, think of an example Lynn and I talked about is like hazard pay. You know, where somebody's doing something that's like in their normal job, but maybe a little different or more dangerous, more complicated, or you know, just slightly different. We want to compensate them for doing that extra bit, but it's going to be done in a 40-hour work week. So, you know, I mean, we can still do that for her, but I wasn't sure if what the chief was thinking is she'd work 40 hours and then she'd work 3 or 4 extra hours a week on top of that. If we do that, I'm concerned about it being a stipended position, because really she should be working overtime. She should be getting time and a half for that, not a stipend.
What if the same issue, where if she can fit all this into a 40-hour week, then her clerk position doesn't warrant 40 hours. Are we still going to step into that fiasco?
Circling around on it again.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and that's where I think if we tie it to a stipend, and then in the future somebody wants to, a future board says, you know, let's go back to hiring a contractor for this work, then at least you can clearly say, well, that work was being done by stipend, so the job duties are otherwise, you know, unaffected, and she's still working 40 hours a week, and her hourly rate of pay for those 40 hours haven't otherwise changed.
Do we run into a problem again by changing her job title to?
Her job title would stay the same. The conversation I had with Lynn Bruce was adding like a sentence basically saying that in addition to her regular duties, she would be tasked with general tidying, you know, of the police station, and then we'd add a stipend, you know, for additional cleaning duties beyond general tidying. Theoretically. But if that's something that you folks would, you know, contemplate, then I can go back to Lynn and ask her to prepare a draft job duties statement that incorporates this, and then at the next meeting I would say we could look at that. If you guys agree, then great, and we can figure out exactly what the stipend would be for that work. And then this would also just allow me to flesh out with the police chief. Is he envisioning this to happen within her regular 40 hours, or was he thinking it would be extra hours?
In that way, it'd be separate, totally separate.
If it was
more separate.
Yeah,
If
I mean,
it's
you
the
wouldn't
stipend.
mess with a job title or anything, it'd be paying a stipend for whatever hours.
Yeah, her job title would stay the exact same. Yeah. Her job duties would just
Yeah, be outside of those duties, it'll be just a few hours, and she'll be paid a stipend for that.
Well, no, this is
You add hours.
yeah, no, this is the tension. We're proposing to not add hours.
Add duties.
Add
Yeah.
You're
duties.
trying to keep it in the 40-hour thing?
Add duties, keep it within the 40 hours, add stipend.
Would you find a way to make this happen? With a wording with this?
You'll find a print at the bottom of whatever it is now that says other related duties.
Yeah, that's effectively, but I mean, if you guys would like this to be explored further, then I can talk with Lynn about what this might look like. And again,
Sounds good.
it's not really specific to Uda. I mean, she happens to be the one in this position, but we're talking about the position.
So,
Do we need to vote on that, or?
No, not right now. So I'll ask Lynn to help prepare a draft position statement or duties statement that incorporates this concept, and then
I think we're open to that.
yeah. Okay. So next meeting, action item.
Next item is 2 part-time police officers. So I saw the chief Friday, and he's sorry he couldn't be here tonight. He sent me a letter. I apologize, I'm not able to attend Monday's meeting. I hope you'll be able to address the following for me. The first one was the part-time cleaner. The second thing is, he would like to hire Marie Finelli as a part-time officer. This officer would not be an additional cost to the department other than a uniform. Officer Finelli has been a certified police officer since November 2004. She currently works for SUNY Broome Public Safety. She will be used to fill in part-time when we have open shifts. I would like Officer Finelli at the pay rate of $20 per hour. He would also like to hire Jack Boucard as a part-time officer. Officer Boucard has recently retired from Vestal Police Department. Again, no additional expense to the budget. He would be someone we could use occasionally to fill in. I'd recommend setting Officer Boucard's pay at $22.50 per hour. So the way he explained it to me was he's got one of our full-time police officers going out for medical reasons for a month or so. So he's trying to, and we've got some other part-time police officers that are running up on waiver issues. So these 2 individuals would help him fill the hours. And they're not,
So you're hiring.
they're not additional hours.
It's temp, temp's not a regular.
All part-time.
They're part-time officers, but we're not increasing our budget, he's just filling the hours because we don't have enough officers, enough
But
part-time.
we're not guaranteeing them a certain number of
No,
hours.
none of that,
So
some of
that
these may
means
not be able to
temp.
work it out. Charles, would you be interested in?
They will protect this if we run into labor issues, right? So
Right, and we'll have somebody to work if.
Okay.
Commissioner?
I'd like to make that motion and move forward with that.
Second?
Probably have to make 2 separate motions, right?
Let's do the first one.
2 separate.
Marie Finelli first, at $20 per hour.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. So we'll vote on her. Right?
Yes,
Yes.
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 And yes.
And the other guy is Jack Burkhart,
And we do motion for that.
Okay, probably in a second motion. And in the discussion phase, the chief knows these individuals, knows about them. They're
Yes.
highly qualified, he highly recommends them.
Yes. I actually met Marie.
I did look online and saw she rescued a cat last year.
Yes.
arrested them, yeah.
She's hired.
No, the rest of
Rescued a cat, rescued a
I
cat.
thought you should have said arrested a
I don't think
cat.
they make handcuffs in the fall.
Marie happened to be there New Year's Eve when I went in there. Huh?
Second degree reality.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll vote on Jack, right?
Yes, we gotta do
Yes.
both of them, yes.
Yeah, we already voted on the first one, this
Right.
one's Jack.
So this is Jack. France?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Okay, so you can let him know. Next item is driver safety courses through 9-year for village employees. This was something else I think the chief was doing, right?
Yeah, but it's also something Jeff can use and.
Right.
What it is, NYMER gives us a list of, they're mostly computerized courses.
9-year is, what's the stamp for
That's
it?
our-
New York municipal insurance reciprocal.
Right, that's who we offer our insurance.
So they give you like computerized courses of maybe 200 or 300 courses. You can just take them on the computer. They're anything from safety, flag man, don't fall in the hole, that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know what we need to.
Driver-related ones, I think he said that would lower our car, or our
Insurance rate.
insurance on the vehicles.
On the vehicles, maybe, yes. Maybe your personal vehicles.
yeah, can the board of trustees take?
I think anybody can take it. You're covered by the public liability, I'm sure you could probably take it.
So it would lower my insurance.
Possibly.
I don't, maybe it would, but this is more targeted for reducing the village's insurance costs.
Uh-huh.
But they also, but they have like hundreds of courses to take, so there are all kinds of courses. Kind of very interesting.
So was there anything to do on this? He didn't send me anything on it,
No, they're all free too, there's nothing,
just a
Are
awareness
you
maybe.
requiring employees to take it?
I don't think we want to do that yet, you know, require anybody to take it.
No, really, but,
Offer to them.
yeah, we can,
On a snow
I
day,
can
when
see
it's
who
snowing,
wants to do
when
it.
it's snowing out, they
Yeah.
can come in and do that.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah, right.
We can convince them to take it and lower our insurance, that'd be good. What's that?
We're mandatory through the fire department, we can VSIP, or fire insurance through the building. That's the first thing I look at when we have an accident, after we roll our tanker, the mandate, and we keep insurance with them. That's what we use VSIP.
We're not mandated for that because we have to do random alcohol and drug testing. We're the only department that has to do that, even though everybody else drives bigger stuff and carries guns.
It's the operation of the shovels that is very important.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well,
We've
I'll
suffered
We're on a
probably
hazardous situation.
those wet frozen leaves, so
Yeah.
I'll make everybody a copy of what's it,
Okay, that sounds good. Unless you have something more specific in mind.
Because we all have CDLs.
All right, the next item should be an interesting one. Civil service salary for the police chief's position. So this is that item that we were talking, last time, the test that has to be published. So the test, the range requirement has opened up. The test has been published, but we can still modify the salary on that test. So I did some research. I actually got a hold of NICOM, New York Conference of Mayors, which we belong to, and they sent me a spreadsheet of every job description you would have in the government, and every village and what they pay. So, by population. So I sorted, and I looked at villages. Our population for WEGO is 3,800, almost 3,900. So I looked at villages, populations 2,500 to about 6,000, and what they do for police chief, because it's all in the spreadsheet. There's a mixture of full-time and part-time. It appears the full-time villages about our size, on average, pay the police chief $69,187 per year. And the part-time police chiefs, I assume because of waiver reasons, the average comes out to $30,189 per year.
Wow. We've been paying pretty good.
So we've been paying really well. The bigger municipalities like Johnson City, Endicott, whatnot, they're up in the 100,000, 150,000 range.
That's the population, right?
Rusty?
That's the population.
It seems to be related to them. I mean,
In the size of the department.
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
more population, you got a bigger force, you got more, think of the guy as a manager of the department, he's got more employees.
So, just approximate numbers, $69,000 a year for a full-time job is approximately $35 an hour. So, every $10,000 is about $5 an hour. That's what's about $35 an hour in that particular thing, although full-time and part-time are different kinds of things. Did you have numbers that you were at with those figures? Did you have?
So I guess the first question is, are we gonna list full-time or part-time for our police chief? I mean, we've actually,
Where are we currently?
mine is, currently we're paying 65,000 a year
And that's,
Part-time.
well,
for part-time.
for part-time, which we're.
These
if
numbers-
you Work it out by hourly, if it was full-time,
Right.
then just salary would be 130,000. And that doesn't include the cost of benefits and
Full-time.
other
It'd be
things.
double
If it
what
was
we're paying.
full-time, yeah, if we double what we're paying.
Fran, we're paying at the rate that we've chosen to pay our part-time chief, and the rate that Mike's civil service, we're paying them $62.50 an hour.
Right.
And
So
we
currently,
need not to put that in our civil service thing, is that amount we're gonna pay.
right.
And if we put down a full-time, if we want this to be a full-time chief's test job, then we're into the $120,000 with benefits whatever that number,
Well, right, so
number
these-
might be.
This 69,187 is plus
Yeah.
benefits.
Plus, yes, plus benefits, that's right. I'm saying if we
So
get a
you're-
full-time chief, we're into that $120,000 total
Total cost, yes.
compensation. Those things being said, I think that we should put, can we put whatever range we want in there pretty much in civil service? It'll tell us whether it's acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, civil service is the one
I think,
that would ultimately put it in there. It's listed currently as a minimum salary.
Right.
So if you just put the floor and then it's kind of allowed to be negotiated, you know, it's assumed that you would negotiate possibly higher than that, but again, it's a minimum salary.
So we don't have to put something to something, we're just gonna put it.
Yeah, you just put the level in.
Right.
And I think we're gonna pay a part-time chief more than $35 an hour, but I think that that's an interesting number to put in there. Because I don't wanna put a huge number in there.
Right.
What number's in now?
But now it's
Right now it's
6250. That's my recommendation, minimum $35 an hour.
Which would come out to,
Well, that would be around $69,000 a year if he was part-time.
if he was full-time.
If he was full-time, if he was part-time, that would be $35,000 a year. This is approximate, but it's about there.
20 hours a week would be 36,400.
36,000.
So
Which
double that for a full.
Is in line with the state average, which we didn't know until I called
I mean,
NICOM.
it's pretty hard to put down for a chief that, when we pay some of our part-time officers $25 an hour, it's pretty hard to put down
Right.
something, 35 is probably too low also, but I want us to put lower than we're gonna spend. That's my opinion.
I'd be okay with 35.
Sounds about right.
What do you guys?
When I talked with Lynn Bruce today about, you know, just exactly what it might look like, her recommendation was if you guys don't decide, if you can't decide tonight, you probably won't, between part-time and full-time. If we just list, it's currently listed as $62.50 part-time. If we just list it as dollars per hour and we don't say part-time or full-time, then the hours are basically negotiable as well with somebody, or it's
Well,
not necessarily.
That's a good idea. We don't have to necessarily put part of full-time.
Right.
Oh, then we should not put part of full-time, and we should put
Just say $35 an hour.
Right,
yeah.
Then you could double it and get to the $70,000 range.
Sure.
Right. And
We want the flexibility.
given the experience last time when the exam results came out, it was May, June, I think, which means, you know, you're right in the middle of budgeting for your next year anyway.
Right.
So you'll be having those conversations internally, while at the same time you would have that conversation with whoever it is that ends up taking the exam and passing.
So $35 an hour, okay, at least on the test? We're not committing to pay on this, we're just listing it on the
On
test.
the test,
Yeah.
you know. So move, $35 an hour minimum.
You making a motion, Russell?
I am.
I'll second that.
Okay, so voting,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
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 and yes.
We'll scare Joe.
I did it, because they're Pennsylvania.
Joe, your salary just went down from 62.5 to
I
35.
have it.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah. If they didn't give it to NICOM, I have it,
Oh, right.
because it's a voluntary thing, so. It wasn't every village, there was a lot of villages.
Mhm.
All right, next item is new fire department member. Samuel Shoemaker. Waga Ladder Company on the bottom.
Mr. Mayor, I'm making a lot of motions this evening.
There you are.
As president of Waga Ladder Company number 5, I would be honored to make a motion that we accept this gentleman. in our fire department.
And there's a number of fives also. I second that.
So vote.
Yes.
Charles?
Yes.
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 Yes. I don't see. It's conflict. Jeff can sign
You know how to spell Edward?
How do you spell it?
All right, next item, minutes of 12/17/2018. Where we get the minutes, previous meeting. Anybody have any edits?
I don't think they gave you copies other than what you got on mine.
All right, I know I read it.
Yeah, I only got it on mine.
Email.
I can give you enough stuff tonight.
Keep the loggers in business. So do I have a motion to,
I'll make
Accept
that
the
motion.
minutes.
I read it online. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
do I have a second for the minutes?
For the minutes. Did you read the minutes?
Yes, I did. I'll second.
Okay. Did you read the minutes, Rusty?
I did not, and I will probably abstain from this vote unless.
Okay.
Tell me not to.
So we'll vote
Yes.
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 Abstain.
yes. Okay. Payment of bills is our next item. Look through the payment of bills. On question one, which was car washes. Apparently those are for police cars. Other than that, everything was done in order. That was in order too, I just didn't know why. And what we were washing.
It does show up on this payment bills, we paid our first payment for the sewage treatment plant of $565,000. Pretty good. But we don't have to pay it again until next January.